Wow, what an intro. Hello, everybody. I'm Roadblock, and apparently I just lost my voice. This is a Raid Shadow Legends video. We are going to be dedicating this to Hydra. As you can see right here, individuals in my clan said that they would love to see a Hydra video. So I am actually making this video. These videos don't, if I'm honest, they're not usually like really popular, widely viewed videos, but I like to give my insight, I like to give my advice and my thoughts on this area of the game. My clan needs a little bit of help, so I figured I'd make a video for them, and as always, something I say to them could also be helpful for you. So here we go. Let's talk about Hydra. First of all, let's talk about why Hydra is important. Now, unfortunately, on this account, I can't show you some of the stuff I want to show you because I already have Mithrala. But in here, probably the most important reason to do Hydra early game. And so much that many of you don't remember a time when Hydra Clash wasn't a thing. And when Stone Skin kind of people didn't realize how meta it was. There was a time, at least that I remember, where people did Hydra for Mithrala and then didn't care about Hydra anymore. Um, Obviously, that's not the case anymore. But there was a time when I remember people, oh, I got my Mithrala. I'm not doing Hydra. I don't care. It's not worth it for me, right? Mithrala is all I wanted. Now, were they right? No, I don't think they were right. Protection gear is amazing. Stone skin gear is amazing. There's no reason to ignore it. But those are the reasons that you want to do Hydra. You want to get Mithrala, and you want to get stone skin and protection gear. Now, why do you want those pieces of gear? Again, this is going to be a large overview about Hydra, what's important on Hydra, what's special about Hydra. Here's my Mithrala right here. I just got her blessing upgraded, so I need to get that on her. But let's talk really quickly about stone skin and protection gear. This is the gear that drops from the dungeon. Now, protection gear is great for your supports. So you get some resistance, you get some HP, you get some speed as you rank up in the set, but you also get a chance to place a protected buff. That means that when you put your buffs out there, they cannot be removed. They can't be removed by a mischief head in Hydra. They can't be removed in the arena. They can't be removed unless the character, for some reason, has been specified to be able to also affect protected buffs, which I don't think exists in the game. As you get more pieces of the set, it does go up in chance to place protected, but if I'm honest, I feel like people tend to sleep on protection a little bit. The reason I say that is because protection, a 3-piece in protection gives you the same speed as a speed set. 12% speed, 12% speed, right? So now that we can also get accessories from Hydra Clash and from other means that can be part of a protection set or a stone skin set, you have the opportunity to get speed sets where you may not be able to. On this particular account, the speed gear for these 3 slots that I have on the account is not as fast as this gear. I basically cannot get 2 more sets of speed that give me the same amount of speed boost as this protection gear. And people sleep on that a little bit, you know? When you're building a fast champion, I'm sure a lot of people just go through and pick speed set, speed set, speed set, and say, hey, cool, I'm good. But in my, like my Arbiter here, because my Arbiter has my best speed gear, my Armands rocks this protection set just to get the speed. And also get some resistance HP as well, right? Like, that's pretty good. So, and even just the 2 set, if you're building a support champion and maybe you don't have enough to complete a whole set, but you want that 15% extra HP, that plus 20 resistance, that's pretty good. And then you're also building for the potential future where you can get more speed and just get a much better all-around set. The other thing about protected with the 9-piece now, allies deal 5% more damage for each buff placed by the wearer. So if you have your buffer, you have your support champion, they can potentially give you a lot of extra damage if they give multiple buffs. So another thing to keep in mind about why protection is so good. Now let's talk about Stone Skin. So Stone Skin, if you don't know what it does, it can be a little deceptive. So if you just read the kit, you get 8% HP with 1 piece. By the way, I have talked about this recently. I think 1 piece of Stone Skin is great. If you have the ability to put 1 piece on an item of, 1 piece on a champion that has the stats that you want, but also give you 8% more health, that's a big deal. So sometimes it's better to put that Stone Skin piece, which maybe has 3 accuracy less, but gives you also 8% more HP, right? Like sometimes there's a trade-off there. With 2 pieces, you get 40 resistance, and with 3, you get 15% defense. But the 4-piece and the 6-piece is what we're really looking for. So 4-piece gives a single Stone Skin buff at the start of the round. Gives not a single. Well, it's always a single buff. That's I misspoke. Gives Stone Skin at the start of the round for 1 turn. The 6-piece gives you 2 turns. And you have a 50% chance of blocking removals or steals. That is basically there to prevent people from removing the Stone Skin or blocking the Stone Skin. At the 9-piece, Stone Skin value becomes 0.75 HP. So this isn't very descriptive about what Stone Skin does. You'll see I do have Stone Skin 5-piece on my Ultimate Death Knight here. But what does Stone Skin do? So if we go, how can I see it? I'm trying to remember. It's under skills. Aha, there it is. Okay. So if you come into here and you go down and you find Stone Skin, it will kind of tell you what it does. So Stone Skin buff decreases the damage except the damage received from bombs and burns, and removes all debuffs except bombs and HP burns. Gives immunity to all debuffs except bombs and HP burns. Also, it gives additional Stone Skin HP. A champion with Stone Skin is immune to the decreased max HP and decreased turn meter effects. Even this is not very descriptive, but to see it in action, or if you were to see it in action, because I'm not going to run an arena team right now, with UDK in particular is great in Stone Skin, but a lot of champions are great in Stone Skin. It basically makes it so you don't die, usually for the duration of the Stone Skin buff. If it's a 1-turn duration, you live for 1 turn. If it's a 2-turn, you live for 2 turns. It basically guarantees that. It can be stolen, which is a common thing now with Sun Wukong. He can steal it, which is annoying. But for the most part, it's going to give you survivability. It's very common now where people will build a 4-piece set using accessories and 1 piece up here, or 2 pieces up here and 2 accessories, and then also have a savage set or a nuke build or something. So you get your damage and survivability for at least a turn, which can be really good for slow nukers or a go second team, something along those lines. So it is great gear. I also, like I said, love the fact that you can get 1 or 2 pieces and get a big boost to either your HP, your defense, or something along those lines, right? So I do love the gear. So those are the rewards for... Oh, actually, sorry. I have more rewards to cover. I always forget about all the other magic rewards that you get from Hydra. You also have a chance now to get Soul Stones and Clan Gold. Clan Gold is the slept-on part of Hydra, because if we go over to my main account right now, I have 30,000 Clan Gold right now. That's because I do Hydra regular. You see, I do spend it on the skill tome and the void shard. I mean, I could buy the arcane. I don't need it. I could buy the chickens. Don't need it. Maybe I'll buy the gear here, but I'd rather wait for the better gear in the back half. Either way, it is a very, very important part of the game. Furthermore, we now have Hydra Clash. Now, if you're watching this video, meaning you're new to Hydra, you might not be concerned with Hydra Clash. And I want to be clear, that's okay. Right now, as it stands, and they've talked about changing this, you need to do 35 million damage. Or sorry, you need to get 35 million points. Now, for most of us, that means getting 35 million damage on normal, or half of that on hard, or a third of that on brutal in order to get the minimum chest. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to be focusing on normal and giving advice related to normal. An important thing to understand that differs as you go up in difficulty, the speeds go up, the stats go up of the boss, but also understand that because their health goes up, enemy max HP champions like Newt, Acrizia, they're going to do more damage in Nightmare, while attack-based, defense-based, HP-based, direct damage type of nukers will do more in normal and hard. However, with great gear, which some of you have, looking at you, Vodka, you can run those champions up here in Nightmare. But for those of us with free-to-play accounts or lower-level accounts, normal is going to be a fine spot for us to be in and try to get a reasonable amount of damage. So now let's talk about the fight itself. I think, yes, I can look at all the heads here. So there are 6 heads. These 4 are the starting heads, and then these 2 heads have the possibility of coming out and swapping out with one of these heads after they are destroyed. That's how Hydra works. But what do the heads do? We'll first talk about Head of Decay. So Head of Decay, I often call this the poison head because that's what this head does. It does poisons. The A1 of this champion places 4 poisons. The reason I know it's the A1 is because sometimes if I'm not careful, this head gets counterattack, and when it does, it sucks for me. Because you get all these poisons and your cleanser's on cooldown and they keep coming over and over and over again. But yeah, he's the guy that puts 4 poisons on your champions. Oh wait, no, I'm not. I'm wrong. I'm so wrong. I'm so wrong. Oh my god. I'm going to have to edit that out. No, I'm going to leave it in because I'm an idiot. Okay. Sorry, Head of Decay is not that champion at all. This is the champion that can be provoked. So you'll notice here that he's immune to stun, freeze, sleep, block active skills, block passive skills, fear, true fear, petrification, and enfeeble, but not immune to provoke. Why is that important? So the strategy for this head will cleanse its other heads, the friendly heads, all of them, and gives them turn meter fill. It will also do a single target cleanse and put them under life barrier. If that life barrier stays on that head for 4 turns, it will heal that head completely to full. So, this head is a pain in the butt. However, you can provoke this head, and because you can provoke the head, you can force it to use its A1, and therefore it will not cleanse any allies on the team. So this is why you need to bring a provoker for Hydra. Very, very important. Sorry that I'm an idiot. I don't remember their names. I truly do not remember their names. I know them as Poison Head, Provoke Head, Fear Head. Like, I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. Moving on. Head of Blight. Let me read what this head does. before I say anything. And I thought it was 4 poisons, it's only 3. So Head of Blight, this is the poison head. Okay. Attacks all enemies, places 3 5% poisons. Also has a chance of placing leech. I didn't know this. It inflicts damage to all heads under HP burn when decapitated, so that's pretty cool. Decapitated is when you kill the head. Instantly deals damage from all poison debuffs on each enemy under leech. Okay, yeah, this is this. So poisons, activating poisons. This is the more annoying one that you see. This is Poison Cloud. When this is placed on Hydra heads, anything that you do to that Hydra head under Poison Cloud will be a weak hit, and it cannot be removed or transferred. So this is a pain in the butt if it comes out. There are ways to mitigate this, most notably block buffs. So that, because you can't remove it, but you can prevent it from being placed on an ally head. So block buffs is the best way to do that. The other thing with Poison Cloud is if they are under an HP burn, if the target you're trying to hit has both Poison Cloud and an HP burn, it will ignore the Poison Cloud effect. However, keep in mind, some champions with HP burns their burns are predicated on a non-weak hit, and if they're under Poison Cloud, they won't be able to land their HP burn. Artak is an example of this. Artak cannot land his HP burn if Poison Cloud is out, so you want to keep that in mind. Champions who place their HP burns, like a Mordecai, for example, can do it through the Poison Cloud. So Mordecai is a great option in Hydra, and we'll talk more details about champions later. Then we have the Head of Suffering. This head is a quite frustrating one, but kind of easy to just ignore. Honestly, you don't really want to target this head that much. This head does take a lot less damage than some of the other ones. Also does things that hurt you to doing damage to them. So reflect damage, for example, when they they also give ally protection to the allies. Pain link, if pain link is applied when you do damage to this head, it will do damage to whoever has the pain link on your team. He also has an extra turn, which is one of the most annoying things ever, when he has eaten somebody and there's 2 turns to free that person, and he goes and gets an extra turn and they've been eaten. It sucks. I hate it. So that's one of the frustrations. He also has, I think it's in his passive, decreases the damage all Hydra heads take from AoE attacks by 30%, increases the resistance of Hydra heads by 50%, and decreases the damage taken from poison debuffs from 90%. So when this head is out there, you do less damage. It's frustrating. But I think he also has, I could be wrong about this, he has the most HP, that much I know. And again, I forgot to say this in the intro. I'm not the biggest expert when it comes to Hydra. I'm doing this because it was requested. I'm doing this because I think I can explain things in a way that makes sense to the average bear. And I remember what it was like to not know anything about this game, because that was yesterday. And also, I still don't know enough about this game. I said yesterday, I meant like, it was a joke, but it feels like yesterday. So, this head, though, for me and the approach that I tend to take, this is usually the last head that I kill if it's on the starting 4. And I kind of just ignore it. I cleanse away the debuffs he puts out, and I block the buffs that he puts out. So he kind of isn't a problem for me, but he's also pretty tanky. And that's why he tends to be the last one alive, because I don't really focus him down. When he's out there, I'm not that concerned. My only concern is that he gets an extra turn when he eats somebody. which can be really, really annoying. Head of Mischief. This is probably my least favorite head. This is the one that causes all the headaches for me. So what Head of Mischief will do, and this is very important, so pay attention to this because most people don't understand the intricacies of the ability. I may have said that wrong, but so Head of Mischief will attack the enemy with the most buffs. This is important to remember. We can use that to our advantage, okay? Steals all buffs from the target unless they're protected, and steals 50% of the target's turn meter. If there are multiple enemies with the same number of buffs, this attack will target one of them at random, and it will ignore Veil and Perfect Veil buffs. That doesn't mean the champion, it won't steal those buffs. Then, after it takes your buffs, it will apply a buff spread effect, taking all buffs from this head and placing them on all heads. Changes the duration of all spread buffs to 2 turns, which I didn't know that. So it doesn't matter how many turns the buff they stole was, it will always change them to 2 turns when it gives them to the allies. Again, block buffs will prevent some of this. So when he steals buffs, if he's under a block buffs when he steals buffs, you'll lose your buffs, but he won't gain the buffs, okay? That's why I love block buffs. My favorite ability for Hydra. And likewise, if he happens to steal your abilities, but the rest of the team is under block buffs, he won't spread the block buffs. This is what also makes this head so annoying. 75% chance of redirecting an enemy attack onto another random head will not occur if under a hex debuff. Meaning if he's not under a hex, essentially you can't target him. 75% is a high percent chance. Decreases the damage all Hydra heads take from AoE by 10%. That's normal. So the secret to this guy is hex and block buffs. For me. Head of Torment. This is the fear head. It'll attack an enemy, put fear out, but whenever it gets attacked, it will put fear out there. Now, this fear is, I don't think you can resist it. Yeah. That's the attack. Where is the... When attacked by enemies not under Perfect Veil, places True Fear, this cannot be blocked or resisted. That's very important. So it doesn't matter if you have block debuffs. It doesn't matter if you're super high resistance. It's still going to land on you. The only way to remove this or prevent it is Inquisitor Shamil or a cleanse that removes it after it's been applied. So there's a few different approaches there, but that's kind of the gist of it. So, the other thing you can do is Perfect Veil. If you're under Perfect Veil, then you won't be feared by the fears here, right? When attacked by enemies not under Perfect Veil, then it will place the fear. So if you are under Veil, you won't get feared. So that is a way to work around it. I personally have found that it's been more beneficial to my teams to run a Shamil or to just ignore this mechanic altogether, which sounds kind of crazy, but you only have 6 champions to work with. You're going to have to let something through the cracks somewhere. Lastly, you have Head of Wrath. Is this last? Yeah. Lastly, you have Head of Wrath. This one I call the Exploding Head. Has an AoE hitter, decrease attack. This is the one, every time it gets hit, they have a vengeance counter. After they reach 15, they give themselves block debuffs, reflect damage, and then does an attack on all enemies that hits very hard. Ways to mitigate that damage are decrease attack. I personally rely more on big shields. So if the head is at like 13 stacks and I'm under a big shield, I'll try to pop it real quick. My shield will soak up all the damage, and then I don't have to worry about it for another, couple turns. So I'm not really mentioning their decapitation effects because while there is strategy around the decapitation effects, honestly, I kind of target whatever's lowest, whatever is the most inconvenient for the team that I have. So, for example, if I don't have Inquisitor Shamil, I may want to try and get the Fearhead to die rather quickly. Or likewise, if I don't have, well, if you don't have a Hex, you're not gonna be able to hit the head. But if my Provoker is unreliable, I would say like an iffy Provoker, then I would try to get the Head of Decay down, the Provoke Head, because if you can't provoke him, he's going to cleanse, right? So try to get him, if your provoke is iffy, like, one turn provoke on a 3-turn cooldown, and it's not up all the time, and it's inconsistent, or maybe Molly, like maybe you're one Molly, and instead of getting the 2-turn provoke that you want so badly, you get the 1-turn provoke. It's like, oh, we got to kill that head quick. If your Molly is slow, Molly though can be fast enough, especially if you're hitting the right targets, that she can cycle around, and even though it's a 1-turn, she can be fast enough to get another one. But yeah, there's a lot of options here. I am going to talk to that a little bit like more advanced level. So like if I'm not going to go in depth on Molly's kit, for example, or other champion kits, I'm just going to summarize that these champions can counter these effects. If you want to know why those champions counter those effects, just take a look at their kits. There's a lot of Hydra's a big boss, a lot of information, and I can't go into necessarily every kit. If I have an opportunity to give you a brief rundown and say this champion provides block buffs, then I will do so. So, all right, those are the heads. We kind of covered them. A very rough covering of the heads. I'm going to miss a lot of information, but the main thing I'm trying to get across to you is kind of, hey, they do these things. Right now, you're looking at my main team on the main account, but also on my free-to-play account, I did manage to get 140 damage on normal very recently. I just barely made that, and I'm sure you're like, okay, weird flex, but whatever. But 140 million damage is important because that would have allowed me to get Hydra Clash rewards, provided my clan puts up enough damage to get in the top 3. So that's kind of a goal. Obviously, 35 million is more the goal, but getting 140 million is also really, really good. Now, this is my team on my free-to-play. So let's kind of. Oh, sorry. This is not my main team on this account. That is my normal team for Trunda shenanigans. I am not going to talk about. I'm going to talk about them now, but I'm not going to talk about advanced strategies. Trunda teams. The shield team with Yannicka and Wixwell. These are more advanced teams that players will be using when they have a roster to support those teams and put up billions of damage. In fact, I'm willing to bet that Hydra Clash score, they've only used 21 keys. They did 8.7 billion. Yeah, so right here, you have a team that focuses on resetting this Trunda, who did 3 billion damage by herself. But that's on normal. If you're watching this video, you're looking to progress on Hydra. You're not looking to find a way to get really high Hydra Clash scores. So I just kind of want to point that out for you guys to say, like, let's focus on learning the basics of Hydra, and then after you kind of figure out what the heads do, figure out how to mitigate them, then you can go deeper into these other teams. A brief rundown on that Hydra team. On the Trunda team, she kills all of the heads because she's broken, literally. Like, they coded her weird, and she does really insane amounts of damage that I don't think she should do. With cooldown refreshing, it just keeps coming. So, basically, the way that the Trunda team works is she just blows up the heads over and over. All those mechanics I laid out, the fears, the block buffs, the poison clouds, all of that stuff, is irrelevant if the heads just die before they even do any of those mechanics, right? And that's where the Trunda teams are just so good. So that's parts, that's like, advanced stuff. We're going to focus on just kind of how to beat the boss. Granted, my team for Nightmare isn't exactly a slouch, but I do think it's important to understand what we're talking about here, because this is kind of a basic team. I want to show you both accounts to kind of give you an idea of how you progress in Hydra. What does an end game build for Hydra look like, and what does an early game build for Hydra look like? So an end game build, in my case, I have Acrizia. We talked briefly earlier that Acrizia is going to do a lot of damage for me because enemy max HP, a lot more HP in Nightmare than at the earlier stages. So Acrizia and Newt are really going to do great. I run speed auras on both of my teams because those are going to be very, very important. You're going to want to have high speeds. That being said, if you're trying to do higher difficulties and you don't have the accuracy, you might need to do an accuracy lead. You might want to do a defense aura lead, maybe an HP lead if you think that's a problem for you. But most of the time, the speed lead is going to give you what you need. And then to round out my team on this one, I will run where's my girl? Where's Ugo? Ugo. And I'm missing somebody very obvious in my team, and my brain is not computing it. Oh yeah, Archer Queen. So Archer Queen is going to be a very contentious topic in this because most of you will not have her. She was a very limited time exclusive champion that I happened to be lucky enough to get 2 of on my main account. So take that with a grain of salt, but it doesn't change the fact that she covers some of the principles that I want to go over. And this is a team that's more of an endgame team that can do some things that earlier teams will not. For example, I don't have anything in this team that deals with the fear mechanic. I don't have Duchess giving me Veil. I don't have a Shamil preventing it from being placed altogether. So that's kind of a weak point for this team. But what I do have is a specific set of skills. No, I'm just kidding. What I do have is a lot of cleanse. I kind of have a way to deal with it with Ancora. And because in her passive, I will go into detail on Ancora because this is kind of lesser known about her. But that's Lady Mikage's skills. Thank you, game. That was weird. In her passive, she will take a fear from the highest crit damage champion, which is my Acrizia. So Acrizia gets feared, Ancora takes it away, and Acrizia never gets feared. That sucks for Ancora, and she has like a mini mechanic in her kit that will let her give her extra turn meter if she loses her turn to fear, so she'll jump up to 50%. So it's okay-ish, but if you get true feared, if you don't know this, by the way, true fear, if you lose an ability to true fear, it will go on cooldown. Regular fear, no, but true fear will take the cooldown for that ability. So that kind of sucks. So like you'll go to cleanse, she loses her turn, and then she goes again relatively quickly, but her cleanse is on cooldown at that point, which sucks. The reason I'm running this is not I could probably build I probably should and can build a better team, but this team is fun for me. Honestly, that's why I run it. Ancora has cooldown refresh, Padrick has cooldown refresh with an ally attack. So these two, like, he's making her attack more. Her A1 has cooldown refresh. and so does his. And so they're getting a ton of A1s with the ally attacks that he's putting out. And I'm just reducing cooldowns all over the place. It's my favorite team. I love this team. I came up with this. I made a video on it. I don't think it's revolutionary or game breaking, but this combo is just fun for me. It leaves me open to fears. I could probably do better with a different champion. Um, but this one's just more fun for me in general. I absolutely love it. I have a blast with it. If we go over to my free to play, on my free to play, um, this team is not fully finished. I do have the owl that I want to put in here, but for right now, this is the team that I run. Speed or a lead with the rabbit, right? And then he does an AoE leech, but I don't build him for accuracy because I have another champion that's going to do AoE leech and heal me up. That champion does AoE leech and AoE decrease speed, which is a debuff that you want. We'll get into that in a little bit. Actually, yeah, let me finish talking about my team since I already started it, and then we'll go over essential buffs and debuffs. I do have Mithrala. Mithrala, what's interesting about Mithrala is that she can open the door to Hydra. But to get her, you have to do Hydra. It's kind of a chicken or the egg thing, but remember, the minimum chest for Hydra is only 1.67 million. If you get a couple of lucky hits and maybe one provoke off from a champion, you can knock out that minimum damage and be done with it. I do run Ugo. You'll notice Ugo's in both teams. Ugo is a secret sauce to Hydra because Ugo brings block buffs and defense, and a mini cleanse, and a mini heal, and an emergency revive that you cannot count on. Don't plan for the revive. She's gonna die before everybody else too, right? Don't count on that. Mithrala, I didn't talk about why Mithrala is so good for Hydra. Hex and cleanse and shields. Newt, you guys should know what Newt does by now. He's everybody's most wanted champion, even if you already have him. Enemy max HP damage on a triple hitter. Weaken on his A2. Watch out for the counterattack on the A2. If the Head of Mischief steals that and gives it to everybody, I talked about that earlier, everybody's counterattacking, and it sucks, especially when the Head of Mischief gets it, and because they're going to counterattack, and their A1 is what steals buffs. So now they're going to steal every single buddy's buffs on your team if you don't have a way to deal with that. A good replacement for her is Sun Wukong, who most of us got as a free champion, or with a promo code if you're new to the game. Sun Wukong steals buffs and plays block buffs. I do have Godseeker temporarily in here. Godseeker is here because my Razzlevarg is built for damage, and he is super squishy. And you'll see that. Okay, let's talk about essential debuffs. Oh, and then Wixwell's my provoker. Wixwell, one of the better provokers I've seen for Hydra. Period. End of discussion. Absolute boss when it comes to provoking. I've tried other A1 provokers like Ultimate Death Knight and Husk. I've had Husk. Husk was one of the first epics I pulled in this game. I am not a Husk fan personally, and again, I used him when I was bad at the game, so it could have been my fault. The provoke never landed, and the enemy max HP damage that he did, because I was doing it on normal, never felt as impactful as it does on other champions. I had a very rough go of it with Husk. He always let me down, and I tend to lean in other directions. That doesn't mean you shouldn't get him, or you may love him and say I'm a fool for not liking Husk, but I 6-starred a Husk on my main account. It didn't work out. This one stayed at 50 because I just couldn't bring myself to do it, and now I have Wixwell. I'm happier. Okay, debuffs. We already talked about block buffs. That's essential. HP burn is a great option, and I don't want to say, like, I prefer block buffs over HP burn. You don't have to have one or the other. You can have both. Both is better. Both is great because HP burns do a ton of damage and act as a backup mechanic in case that block buffs doesn't land, if it gets resisted, if it gets weak hit. Like there are stuff that happens. So burns are great. Burns can work through any poison clouds that get placed, right? Burns tick a lot of damage over time to these heads. Some heads take bonus damage from burns. However, I tend not to use them. This is again a personal preference. I tend to lean towards teams that focus on doing damage outright and blowing up heads. I'm also lucky enough to have a Newt and a Krizia and, these really powerful enemy max HP champions. So it's just a personal preference. People tell me all the times, why don't you bring a burner? Why don't you bring a burner? And then I do 140 million and they're like, oh, okay, well, that's why he doesn't bring a burner. It works for him. It works for me. It doesn't have to work for you. Burns are great. Use them if you want to. I don't want you to think that they're not great. So block buffs, burns, provoke on that one particular head. We'll talk about that when we get in here. Hex is super important. Now, it's very, very likely your first Hex champion is going to be Mithrala. And that's important because the best way to grind Mithrala is to squeeze out that 1.6 million damage. Maybe you do the 6. I think it's 6.66 million for the max chest on normal. Maybe you can pull off the max chest on normal and get yourself a better chance at fragments. But for most of us, farming Mithrala is how you're going to get Hydra done. I did not start progressing beyond the 6 million mark until I got Mithrala. She opened the doorway for me to get Hex and guarantee that I can get further into Hydra. So don't be afraid. In fact, you should go into Hydra on normal with your, you got 7 6-stars, use 6 of them, and see if you can squeeze out that damage. You may not have a provoker, you may not have an HP burn, you may have no way of dealing with any of the mechanics I've listed here, but try it. See if you can get close. If you can get close, then maybe you can squeeze out that extra damage with a lucky run or a lucky provoke or something. The way that I originally did this is I just brought UDK with a little bit of accuracy, enough for normal, and then I would start the run. I would go until UDK went. I would A1 the provoke head with Ultimate Death Knight. If he landed the provoke, I would do the run. If he failed the provoke, I would start over. I would start the run over, I would try again, and I would only do the run if he landed the provoke. Because if he landed the provoke, all my debuffs stayed up, and I had block buffs from Sun Wukong, so Poison Cloud didn't go out. I was able to do 1.67 million damage or 2 million damage, something in that range, and get my Mithrala fragments, and that was it. It was just like, it would take maybe 20 minutes, maybe 2 or 3 runs, maybe 5 if I was unlucky, like a negative affinity or something, and then I'd be good. So that is my recommendation to you guys. Just try to squeeze out that damage and get your Mithrala, because she's going to open the door for larger, better teams. AoE decrease speed. So an important thing to remember about Hydra is that it is not it's a boss fight, but it's a damage fight. You're trying to take as many turns as you can in order to do as much damage as you can. Plain and simple. It's very common on Hydra that people will go to 1,500 turns, which is the term limit. They do this by limiting the number of turns that the Hydra heads take. The more that you limit their turns, the longer your timer on the eat mechanic is, which we haven't talked about yet. Um, and the more chances that you get to do damage. Yes, that makes the fight way longer, but it makes the damage numbers way higher. So decreasing speed and increasing your speed is really going to help you just get more and more turns and therefore more and more damage. It's also going to allow you to keep your debuffs up. It's also going to allow you to keep your buffs up. You're going to be able to do a lot of great things if you're using decreased speed and increased speed. There's a lot of AoE decreased speed champions out there, and you'll see they're very common to Hydra. So keep that in mind. My AoE decreased speed is not in the team because it's my Gwendolyn, who's only 5 stars and level 39. She is my next champion to be worked on, and she will immediately be plugged into this team to give me decrease AoE decreased speed and AoE Leech. Why is AoE Leech so good? You're going to do a lot of damage to these multiple heads. And if you've ever run lifesteal gear in a wave clear champion, if you think back to the early days of the game when you put that 4-piece lifesteal gear on your Kale and he uses his A2 against a wave of enemies, what happened? He healed himself completely to full. That's what you're going to see here because you're going to do this damage across 4 heads and you're going to get the healing value of your damage from 4 sources. So you're going to heal yourself up. AoE Leech is a really great way to keep your champion's health up, and then you don't have to bring a full-blown healer, right? You can get away with somebody that does a little bit of other stuff. Now, Archer Queen is my healer on this team, so I don't have an AoE Leech, but if you were to say I didn't have her and I brought Gwendolyn, for example, and obviously I don't have a Provoker, ignore that for the sake of this discussion, that Leech will probably give me a good bit of healing as well. So keep that in mind. You're looking for that as well. So block buffs, HP burn, decrease speed, provoke, AoE Leech. There's probably some more that I'm forgetting as far as... Oh, and Hex. Yeah, I said everything then. Oh, and weaken and decrease defense. Of course, those are standard. I don't feel the necessity to say them, but I am saying them. You want to make sure you're bringing those. Now, that's what makes Ugo so good, because she brings decreased defense and the block debuffs, and then you just try to find another source for weaken. And, yeah. So, as far as buffs go, you're looking for shields, you're looking for... let's talk the eat mechanic. We haven't talked about this yet. It's probably in the boss guide. Let me start this run and you'll see the eat mechanic right away. By the way, there's probably another word for that. There's probably an official word for it, but I call it the eat mechanic because, again, I don't care. Okay, so in 20 turns, the rabbit is going to get eaten. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe this targets whoever has the most crit damage, because it always starts with my Acrizia when I do this mode. So Acrizia is going to get eaten in 20 turns. My rabbit is going to get eaten in 20 turns. And if I regroup and try it again, I think the rabbit is going to be the same target. And there it is, right? So I think that's based on crit damage. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think that is the case. So what will happen is after 20 turns, one of these heads will eat the rabbit, and then we will have a green bar of HP up here. That green bar, if we do enough damage to make that green bar go away, then they will spit that champion back out, and you get to use them again. A couple of important things about this. If your champion gets eaten and they are your provoker, your provoke buffs get removed. It's very important. Remember that. Another thing while we're talking about removing buffs, if the poison head does land poison cloud and you kill the poison head, poison cloud goes away. So keep that in mind too. That is a strategy. It's kind of not going to happen too often, but it is a strategy. So, The only way to deal with this cannot be cleansed. This cannot be removed. If you kill the head that did the eat mechanic, I think I can show you the animation again. No, you don't. There's not even an animation. You don't even know which head did it. You will see an animation later on when it gets reapplied after someone gets eaten. I think there's an animation. I could be wrong about that. Either way, you could kill all of these heads. Someone will still get eaten eventually. Whatever head has their turn when this timer is 0 will eat that champion. The only way to mitigate it is with the taunt buff. Emic has taunt. There's a few other champions. Shayak, the fusion we just went for, has taunt. If taunt is out and the head goes to eat somebody, but taunt is up, that head will not eat its victim. This is, Plarium has actually said, this is not a bug. This is a strategy. It's not a bug. It's a feature. It is a strategy to fight Hydra. So if you can bring a taunt buff, that's great. Shayak is really good for Hydra because of that. Block buffs and taunt. I like Ugo better because of decreased defense, but if you think you can get by without decreased defense and making sure your champions never get eaten, which is usually the downfall of a run, you're looking pretty good. Okay, so let's get started. You see, I'm going to go ahead and put this Hex buff out there. That's for this head. This is the head of Mischief. This is the head that needs Hex in order to be targeted. We'll put block buffs out. Affinities does matter. She's weak affinity to this head. Did not get that buff to land. I think she's weak affinity, by the way. If she's not weak affinity and just got 3%ed or whatever that percent is to always be resisted, I'm sorry for that. But now comes the big thing about this guy. So if I don't provoke him, let's say I go ahead and put a shield out here. I'm going to give that to Mithrala. Why? Because Mithrala has a bunch of resistance, and this head will target whoever has the most buffs. So if I can give Mithrala 4 buffs, and she can resist the steal, that's called a Mischief tank. Now, Mithrala's not an especially good Mischief tank because she doesn't have a built-in extra buff. Champions who do self-buffing can usually be a great Mischief tank because the buffs that they put on themselves will increase their buff total. So if you build them in high resist, they'll resist the Mischief tank. But right now, she has the same buffs as my counterattack. So we don't want that to happen. Block buffs would prevent that counterattack from landing there, but I didn't provoke. So what's going to happen? Let's go ahead and continue doing abilities. Let's go ahead and give us some speed and accuracy with a little bit of damage. Let's go ahead and hit this head because it's such a nuisance. I hate this head. And we have Hex up, so we'll go ahead and hit that head. Look, see, stole from my Wixwell, but didn't gain the buffs. But oh no, what happened? All my debuffs are gone. I didn't provoke that head. So all the debuffs are gone, and now they're under Poison Cloud. Well, what happens with Poison Cloud? We all know my Mithrala has more than enough accuracy to land her poisons. Double weak hit. Ugo, weak hit. This is why, if you're not mitigating this, if you're not bringing a Provoker to deal with Poison Cloud, you're not going to do anything. Look, it's an AoE hit with AoE Leech. We just talked about how good AoE Leech is. All weak hits. Doesn't matter. Well, oh, shoot. Well, now I want to provoke him. Can't provoke. Weak hits. Right? So you don't want to do that. So let's start over. And let me show you what we're looking at here. So everything's going to be the same. We're going to put Hex out there. We're going to get block buffs. This time it actually lands on everybody, so already a better run. We're going to go ahead and get the provoke there. So now we're going to continue. So it was right around this time that they got a turn, right? There you go. Yeah, so I did all these attacks, right? And then they got a turn. So what happens? steals my buffs, but doesn't steal my buffs. And then there was the magic attack right there. This head attacked. Now, it's important to note that the Head of Decay will not, even under provoke, will not always attack the provoker. That is a bit of an issue, and it can be a really big problem. Wixwell is designed in a way that if he gets attacked, he will continue to apply the provoke, but that doesn't mean that this head will always attack Wixwell, even under provoke. It just means that he will use his A1 and not cleanse everybody. So keep that in mind, that Wixwell will have to reapply that buff most of the time. We're going to continue to fight the Head of Mischief here because that's a bigger threat to me. No Poison Cloud came out. I blocked it with block buffs. That's why I love block buffs more than HP burn. You know, if I had an HP burner and I burned there and it got cleansed off, well, it's the same issue, but if I had a burner in place of Ugo, placed burn, and this head placed all of the block buffs, or placed all of the poison clouds, yes, we won't weak hit, but those HP burns will fall off eventually. And then you may get a weak hit if you're not careful. The other thing I love about block buffs is it counters two heads. HP burn counters poison cloud, but it doesn't counter the Head of Mischief. So if I didn't have Ugo, Head of Mischief would now have counterattack, increase accuracy, increase defense, increase attack, speed, and a freaking shield. We don't want that, right? I love block buffs. I think it's essential. I think it's more important than a... I think it's more important than HP burn, personally. I could be wrong about that. Read the comments. People are going to tell me how wrong I am, but I have had much better success without HP burn and bringing block buffs. You can bring both, and you may want to if you don't have a Newt, for example, to do all the damage, or a Razzlevarg, who's going to do most of my damage here. You may just want to bring a burner to also bring that damage and that backup and all that stuff. But I recommend bringing both. But I would, if I had to choose one, and I kind of put myself in this box where I only choose one, I choose block buffs. So I did my mini cleanse there with Ugo, because I had the heal and heal reduction here, and yeah. So we'll continue attacking. The video is getting a little bit long now, but I do want to keep this up. So you'll notice we get the leech out. By the way, my Razzlevarg is not very high HP. I do not have a provoke here, so I need to get that out. And there's the provoke. So now no buffs will be stolen. I talked about Newt. If you are going to use him here, counterattack is dangerous with this head out there. Make sure they're under a block debuffs, or a block buffs rather, before you put that out there. I put that out because I want weaken, but I don't want her to steal my counterattack. So you want to make sure you're keeping an eye on that. So we go ahead and keep attacking this head. Again, I like to attack the Head of Mischief because it tends to be the most annoying head for me. If that head can steal some buffs, if block debuffs, or see, right now, I can't even target this head anymore because my Hex fell off. That's really annoying. I also don't have a block debuffs. They could steal counterattack right now, which would be very, very bad for me. Hopefully, I'll be able to find a way to squeeze out some extra damage. Now, sometimes you get unlucky runs. It sucks. I have to provoke again. Not ideal. I will cleanse here, saving the day. But counterattack does get stolen. That's why you want to be careful and make sure that you can keep that block debuffs up. Now, my Ugo is in Relentless. So usually I'm lucky enough to avoid that from happening. There was the debuff spread. That's why I did that block debuffs. Even though she got another counterattack, they got another counterattack, I didn't want the other heads to get the benefit of that. So I'm going to attack here now. Again, this is a head that is frustrating to deal with. If this head was dead, then Wixwell is not forced to provoke. I'm going to use this big hit here because they are quite low. Yes, they're going to counterattack here, but they targeted Mithrala this time, thankfully. And I think my Newt can finish them here, and he can. And there you go. So counterattack is no longer a problem except on this head. I don't have a super reliable cleanse, so those poisons can get out of control. But for right now, I'm going to be okay with it. I did not have to provoke there because my provoke is still up from earlier. But I'd be honest with you, I forgot. And I have ruined many runs by not paying attention to that. So we, again, trigger all the poisons. This is not ideal. This is probably a failed run for me. But let's talk about the decapitated head. You do more damage to decapitated heads. We're running Hex. Hex is a buff you want to bring. It will be beneficial to you to target a decapitated head and spread that damage across that Hex. Especially when you have really hard-hitting champions that can hit for hundreds of thousands or even millions and spread that. We finally get a much-needed cleanse, and we still have 2 turns on this counterattack. Really kind of unlucky here. Every team has its weaknesses. You kind of have to understand them and play to them. But what I'm actually going to do, now I want to show you what you should do. This isn't a real run. I'm not going to keep this run. So if I use the enemy max HP hit here on the decapitated head, we're going to hit only for 61,000 per hit. Why is that? Because we're on normal. But that damage, big damage on this head will spread over Hex. This is a bad run to demonstrate that. I am going to go ahead and get some shields out, or sorry, extend my buffs here and get a little bit of damage out. So this is not ideal. What I should have done there was use Newt to potentially kill this head to avoid all these stupid counterattacks. But I'm okay. We're fine. I do have a lot of revive in this team, so I'm really not worried about any like random off death here. Of course, the Head of Mischief comes back out. It always does. My least favorite head. Razelvarg dies. I'll get him back out in a second. So Mithrala now has more buffs than anyone else on my team. I'm not going to put counterattack on Newt. Actually, no, Wixwell has the same amount. So, yeah, not ideal situation. We'll hit this decapitated head here. The decapitated head that takes the most damage when decapitated depends on what type of attack you're using, but the Head of Suffering has the most HP, so enemy max HP attacks to this head will do more damage, and when decapitated will do more damage. Because it keeps its original HP. And then when it comes to the head, the exploding head, as I called it, has the lowest defense. So regular attacks will do the most to that head. All right, all those poisons got activated. We're still fine. The counterattack is gone, finally. I can go back to playing normally. The provoke head comes back out. We can still deal with it with Wixwell. Again, I love Wixwell in this scenario. And again, really bad spot. The counterattack comes out. We're kind of in trouble again. But the point, I've kind of showed you what I wanted to show you about this run. My final version of the run will actually have a way of extending these debuffs so that this won't happen, and I'll be able to keep that block buffs up more often on the enemies that I need it on. So this has its weaknesses, but let's go ahead and show you really quickly. I know it's been an hour. I'm terribly sorry, guys, but I do want to show you my main team and kind of what you're looking at for damage. Now with this, I've got a lot of relentless gear in here. I do get an extra attack, but an extra turn. I can use an ally attack, but I cannot hit this head, so I'm going to hit the head, the provoke head, because I hate it. You know, if you can get it out of the way, it's best. It's also an affinity where my wonderful, beautiful Archer Queen is weak affinity, so that weak hit happens. I did not land my provoke, so we're going to regroup, despite the fact that I had a great start with that extra ally protect. This is my most hated rotation, and you may be asking me, Well, if she's weak affinity, why are you still running her? And it's because she does two things. And I run a lot of turn meter, and hopefully, if I play well enough, because I manual these fights, I can manage to pull it off where I can still land the provoke. But I might need to consider running a different provoker this week. I'm stubborn, I'll admit, like right out the gate, to not read 100% into my advice, because I am quite stubborn. And as you can see, like, weak hitting happens way more often than it should. But with that first one, I will just keep doing this. There's nothing wrong with this. Like, I've lost nothing. I've lost nothing. She's my third person to go on this team, or second person. There's the provoke. So now we can continue on. I am actually going to target this head. Because that provoke is so inconsistent, I want to try and deal with this head as much as I can. Because it is so annoying, right? If that provoke, if I can't kill it in 2 turns and that provoke doesn't happen, my run is shot. So even though Mischief Head is a real nuisance for me, and you'll see I did not land block buffs there, I'm better off going for this. Also, Archer Queen not only brings Hex and Provoke and Decrease Speed, 3 of the magic ones that I did. She's also my healer. So if I take her out, then I don't get any healing. So I also have a way of just killing this head. Because I run Newt and Acrizia, who I don't think Acrizia's even had her turn yet. She must have. But there's that double turn that I talked about, that extra turn that can be so annoying. She did get a turn. But you'll see Acrizia on this difficulty, she's hitting for 300k a hit. Crazy damage. So that one turn on that provoke is about to run out, so we're just trying to do as much as we can. I also have a lot of cooldown reduction on this team. Something I didn't talk about, there's one strategy, a very basic strategy that I want to talk about for you guys. So I feel like I'm at a good stopping point to show you. I just kind of wanted to show you generally what some teams do here. You'll see, like, she's already trying to replace the provoke, and he was still under 1 turn of it. So hopefully, if I get some lucky rolls or some lucky damage, we can cycle back around. Maybe some cooldown reduction too. That's a dangerous one. I just put counterattack out without block buffs up, but there's the block buffs. If I can get lucky, I might be able to still pull this off without the buffs being stolen. I will say that as long as I block the poison cloud, that's really the biggest reason why I don't want my buffs cleansed, is to block poison cloud, and of course to block my buffs being stolen by the Mischief Head. But you can see Acrizia does Acrizia things, and I'm able to get this head very, very low. So even though I didn't get the provoke, I'm able to kill him. So sometimes you can get away with a less than ideal team. If you have those holes in your team, you have to play towards your strengths and avoid your weaknesses. That head is a weakness for me this particular week. I'm going to focus that head. On other weeks, this head's a weakness. Maybe this head's a weakness, depending on affinities. So you just want to be mindful of that. But if we do a free regroup, I'm going to show you another kind of basic team that you can run. On this account, I'll show you. I would do it on normal. I like the combination of anybody that gives you turn meter in the lead. I would used to go for the longest time with Lady Kimmy and Inquisitor Shamil. Let's really quickly, I said I wouldn't do this, but let's really quickly look at Inquisitor Shamil and talk about why he's so good in Hydra. So if you don't already know, it's his passive. So on his passive, Whenever an ally receives a fear or a true fear debuff from an enemy, this skill will instantly remove the debuff and fill the team leader's turn meter by 15%. Now, this used to say fill the team member's turn meter by 15%, but it was always the leader's turn meter, and now they fixed it to properly say that. But why is this important? So if you put a turn meter filled champion in the lead, something like a Nekmothar, you could do Arbiter, you could do Lady Kimmy. Nekmothar is great because your leader, your aura leader, your aura team lead, if they can have turn meter fill and they also have an increased speed aura, this is a really good combo because when there's a Fearhead out there, Shamil is constantly pumping turn meter every time you hit that head. He's also counterattacking that head a bunch. So there's two different ways you can kind of go about it. You can build a really big damage dealing Inquisitor Shamil, or what some people like to do is build a rather weak Shamil and you ignore the Fearhead and manipulate its mechanics with Shamil, or Shamael, however you want to say it. I say Shamil, whatever. Leave me alone. If you can manipulate that turn meter and give a bunch of turn meter fill to your leader, who then takes that turn meter fill and rotates their turns more often, giving more turn meter fill to your team. Nekmothar is amazing in this role. A speed or a lead, turn meter fill, a decreased speed, I think. So this combination is really good. But for most of you that don't have those champions, that have a Inquisitor Shamil, but don't have Lady Kimmy, you could do, look, speed or a lead, and he gives turn meter to the team. Not much, 15%, but he does it. You could also do somebody I think is really, really great in this role, is also Arbiter. Keep in mind, Arbiter's aura wouldn't work, but again, she's giving you guys turn meter. What you want to be careful of is remembering how that mechanic works. If you put somebody in the lead for an aura and run a Shamil or Shamael, like you might run an ultimate Death Knight, your UDK is going to get a ton of turn meter. But are you benefiting from that? Maybe you get a whole bunch of extra A1s if he's your provoker, sure. But are you getting the benefit of the rest of his kit? Maybe not, right? Likewise, if you run an ally HP, this might be good because he's a provoker, but somebody else, it might not be as good if they're taking multiple turns and they're not giving you any benefit to the team. So I like to use champions in this role that have a speed aura and turn meter fill, so that they're constantly pumping out their turn meter and giving you so many extra turns. So that whole provoke issue, right? Oh, you have a Molly, right, that only has it's a 1 or a 2 turn provoke. If you don't get the 2 turn provoke, it's okay. You're pumping out turn meter. She gets to go again, and then even though there's only 1 turn provoke, she places another provoke, right? And you can just keep doing that. So that's my recommendation for a really good, easy team. If you happen to be lucky enough to pull Inquisitor Shamil, but it's not necessary. If we go back over to the free-to-play, I have Inquisitor Shamil. I never built him. He's still level 40. I just happened to kind of stumble into a better team. And the fear mechanic is a problem for this team, but I kind of just ignore it. It's not ideal. It can be very frustrating, and sometimes it can ruin a run. But at the end of the day, like, I don't know where I really fit him in here. You know, I can't get rid of my cleanser. You've got my decreased speed, or sorry, you've got my speed aura lead and a ton of damage. You didn't really get to see. Razzlevarg really does a bunch of damage. My damage dealer here, maybe he could come in here for Godseeker, but you know, I unfortunately I've gotten to this spoiled stage in Hydra. When I first did Hydra, the Fearhead was a nightmare. I had no way to deal with it. When it came out, it ruined my runs. I was scrambling. I wasn't waiting on cooldowns. I was using AoEs when I shouldn't because there, the Fearhead was out there, whatever. But then in the higher levels of play, when I just kind of ignore the mechanic and I'm fine, it makes me less scared of it. And I have the gear to get around it. You may not be in that position. You may not have the gear to get around it. Inquisitor Shamail is an amazing option, and I highly recommend, if you're able to, I would build him. By the way, Wixwell also has kind of a way around it. Intercept can prevent Mithrala, who I constantly target with Intercept, from getting feared, and then she can also cleanse the fear off of everybody. So I have a mini cleanse in Ugo. I have a big cleanse in Mithrala. So I kind of just ignore the mechanic. I'm sorry, guys, but it's what I do. I already know this video is going to receive a ton of criticism, and I admit it's well deserved. These are my approaches. These are my opinions. There's a lot of information that I still don't have because this boss is so detailed and so complicated, but the rewards are so good. And for me, this is my favorite boss in the game. I will spend an hour and a half manually running my main team with the Krizia and Newt and everybody that you saw earlier. I love it. I love Hydra. It's just a sweet spot for me. It doesn't have to be for you. You could hate this boss. You could say, I hate it. I don't do it. Great. Fine. But for me, I actually love doing it. I really, really do. It's my favorite area in the game. I'll put on a show on my other monitor. I will sit here and I will spend an hour and a half enjoying a movie while I decide what abilities I want to use. So, that's me. It may not be you. When it comes to auto teams, when it comes to the niche teams like the Trunda teams and the Shield teams and all that stuff, a lot of resources out there. There's probably better videos than mine out there telling you about Hydra. So if you've stumbled upon this one, you might want to check those out. But hopefully, I will have explained enough to you guys about the very simple mechanics and the very simple concepts behind this particular game or mode. And I hope I helped. I hope I didn't confuse you anymore. If you have any questions about anything, put them in the comments. I will definitely respond to them either in a reply or I'll make a video about it if I completely missed something. I'll be honest, I'm going to take this video down and re-record it probably a month from now because this is way too long of a video to make on the fly. Like, I've been talking for an hour. I'm tired. It's 1 a.m. I'm done. All right. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like my content, if you like the idea of a raid content creator who is honest, admits that he's dumb, and wants to give you guys as much information as he can and put it in the simplest of terms, that's me. Support me, please, by subscribing. You could also like the video and leave a comment. All of that stuff will help me grow my channel. This is the kind of stuff I love doing. I may not have all the facts. I may not be the best at this, but I love doing it. So if you want to support me, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully, I'll see y'all in the next video. Take care.